Where is everybody? I know I'm late. Andreas, Rick, Jeff. Good to see everyone. Catherine, RC32, Marco, James. I'm just hanging out in the studio here. Been working tonight, working on a new video. And I got to a point. What's up, Rob? Got to a point where I just thought it was getting to a diminishing returns. Hey, David, Brian, Alan, Jeff. Dennis, what's up? We got to talk. Are you going to be around in a bit? I'm trying to do my video now, the guitar 1990 to 99. And I worked on it a lot. I'm taking a little different I gotta the guitar, I'm doing a little different approach with it, I think. The other ones I talked about all the individual players from the 80s, from the 70s, because everybody had these stylistic, everybody had their own style, and the guitar solos were really, prominent parts of the songs in the 60s, 70s, 80s, especially the 80s. In the 90s, they still were, but in a different way. And I'm talking about how, thank you, Chris. That's very nice. Appreciate that. I'm talking about how the guitar began to change. I thought a lot about this, that grunge did not kill metal, hair metal. Lots of drop D in the 90s. And this is interesting. So I'm friends with Kip Winger. Now, Winger was, he thinks that Nirvana, he thinks a combination of Nirvana, Stewart from Beavis and Butthead, who had a Winger t-shirt and he was the nerd, and then Metallica when Lars threw a dart at his poster in one of the Metallica videos, that over the course of 1 week, all this stuff happened. And that was pretty much what did I do with that? That was pretty much the end of Winger. I mean, that's what he considers to be the end of Winger, was that whole thing that happened. And I thought a lot about it as I'm making this video, and I disagree with that, actually. There was a transition happening that started around 89, away from hair metal, or glam rock, whatever you want to call it. And it happened in 89 and 90, and there was Queensryche, and with Silent Lucidity, you had the Black Crowes record. You have Alice in Chains in 1990. You had Loud Love. You had the Louder Than Love record by Soundgarden, 89. You had The Cult. You had these bands that didn't have that 80s image. Hassan, what's up? And I think that hey, Brett, I think music was moving away from the 80s glam metal. Guns N' Roses. Now, when Guns N' Roses first came out, you remember their first pictures, and they had the hairspray and everything, but they quickly um, dispensed with that. Um, and even Skid Row was not a typical 80s metal band, but Firewoman, The Cult, that doesn't sound like 80s metal. Ian Astbury had long hair, but at the same time, you had the worst of the worst, which was Warrant Cherry Pie. Well, November Rain, Chris, is 1991. It's not that the people didn't have remnants of that, because even if you look at Alice in Chains on the Facelift record, which came out in 1990, they look like a glam metal band, but their music is not that. So it's really fascinating. So I don't really think that grunge killed metal, that killed hair metal. It was by the time that you came around, if you think of hair metal starting, with bands like Rat in 1983, or even Ozzy in 81 or 80, the transition happened in the late 80s when you start getting a copy of a copy of a copy. You know what happens with a copy machine? If you try and copy the same thing over and over, it gets more and more degraded. And I think that that's what happened. And so I went through and I've been trying to find, and I agree with what Shane just said, grunge songs were better. That's right. I totally agree. Glam killed itself is right. It's really fascinating, though, to kind of do a forensic examination of this. Joe, you lived in Hollywood in the late 80s. You witnessed a transition. Well, I mean, really, the stuff that was going on at out there on during that time period. I'll give you another record is the Aerosmith Pump and Permanent Vacation, or Pump record, really, with Janie's Got a Gun. Those things really, that was a different sounding record at the time. It was a huge record. Now, Dale says, wait, who says this? Hair metal died out as everyone went bald. John says, how about punk? So there's a lot of stuff going on. So in punk rock, you had bands. You had 7 Seconds. You had Fugazi. You had what else? I'm trying to think that you had Black Flag. You also had bands like the Pixies, right? The kind of precursors to grunge. I'm really thinking more 1999. What happened in 99 and I'm sorry, 1989 and 1990. Dinosaur Jr. Grunge did not last as long as hair metal, Shane said, and he is totally right about that. What's up, Bob? REM, great call, Rob. So that was another thing. So REM, I want to say, I'm trying to think that the Police were broken up by then, John. I'm thinking REM had the Green album and then had Out of Time. Well, Out of Time was 91, and that was a massively big record. Um, you know, King's X had that song It's Love. They had Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, which was 89 or 88, and then they had 1990. Living Color was another band. I want to say Cult of Personality had to have been 1989. Right then. So, Danzig would have been around that time too. So, anyways, this video kind of gets into this. And I mean, at the same time, you had Metallica, Megadeth. So you had a few different types of metal that was going on. You had thrash metal. You had progressive metal, Dream Theater, Meshuggah. You had industrial metal, Ministry, bands like that. There was a big industrial movement. Rage was 1992. Rammstein, right around then. And shoegazing music was starting to become big then too. Shoegazing was really big. Swerve Driver, all those bands were going on then. The Stone Roses, Curve, Ride. And then, of course, you had the stadium bands that were happening then. You had U2. 89 was 88 was Rattle and Hum. 91 was Achtung Baby, a totally different thing. 120 Minutes was on MTV. No, 120 Minutes was not on MTV. Headbangers Ball was on MTV. Soon to be replaced by 120 Minutes when it went alternative. Van Halen, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was 1991, I want to say. So this video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to focus on the use of guitar in the 90s. So we had grunge. So we had all those transition bands. Silverchair was another one in the middle. You had Fu Manchu, that was stoner rock band. The Catherine Wheel, which was a shoegazer band. And then you had the second tier of grunge bands like Bush or Days of the New. Also, in your prog metal would be Tool. You know, they were a prog metal band, really, right? What would you call Tool? So, A lot of stuff going on in the early, in that transition of that of from 89 to 90. Um, Fascinating though. So that's kind of what the take on this thing is. It's it's a little different. It's more of the how the guitar how the guitar changed. So the Black Crowes, right? That was a very big departure. But you had Joe Satriani going on then too. Um, Big changes though. 89 to 91, Pantera. Chris asks, when do you think dramatic keyboard parts were phased out of rock? Parts that were meant to be heard, not just layered. Out of rock music? Um, I have to think about that. Um, Eric Johnson as well, yeah. Um, Classical Banksy says there's an inevitable connection between the musical and sociological. Okay, ex- explain. Um, the last big rock song with keyboard was Right Now. Um, hmm. Is that true? Um, it's another interesting thing is that um, women liked 80s metal, but women like grunge too. That's what's fascinating about it. It was really, really fascinating. A lot of, you would see just as many women at grunge gigs. Um, Women loved Eddie Vedder, Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain. You didn't see um, chicks liked 80 metal. That's right, they did. Um, I tell you where girls started getting into or getting away from listening to metal is the new metal. I've seen the flick singles. I've seen the movie singles. Um, so yeah, absolutely fascinating all this stuff. I'm wondering. I'm wondering if the recession in 1991 had something to do with this too. When H.W. Bush was in, if that could have, the Gulf War, things that happened then, if the economy had something to do with that change of into uh, you know the that move from metal to grunge. It's really really fascinating. So, anyways, so I'm gonna put that video out tomorrow. I've got a lot of it shot. I just have to tie it together now. Um, I am tired. I am gonna go to bed now. But I just want to get on. I had some thoughts. I wanted to bounce them off you guys. I got some good ideas now. So I'm gonna go to bed and get up and make this video tomorrow. And I agree, Chris. There will never be anything like that again. I'll talk to you guys later. Okay. Thanks.